All right.
Good evening. Welcome to Matinee Free Webinar. Today we have two special speakers, Mr. Ray Mathias and Mr. Matt. They're both working for EQ4PEACE, and definitely for the last 35 years they're doing their best for EQ, not only in their area but India and also all other different countries also. And Ray Mathias is an educator. I have done so many things basically in REBT and REBE for primary education and other areas also. So today we are discussing about PMH and EQ for elderly people. So with all your presence, I invite both of you to the session. You are welcome. Who is doing first? Ray is doing. Yes, welcome.
Thank you. All right. Thanks. Yep. Thanks for having us. It's important that we learn about our emotional intelligence. A lot of people don't know about it. And it gets more important, I think, as we get older. And we were just chatting about how we're feeling kind of old today. We're getting older. That's something that we can't really avoid. My mom says getting old is not for wimps, and I'm finding that is accurate. We start falling apart, and we got end of life stuff, and we've got all these issues that go on because we're older. And my birthday's coming up next week or so, and so same thing, it comes up, and here's the subject in front of us. We're all getting older. So let's talk about what we do with that. What do we do with it? Right? What do we do with that? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got about, I don't know, 6 or 8 slides, and then we're going to switch over to Ray, and he's got some great information for you on how to, some good attitudes and such to take, and positive mental health to use while we're aging and we're still breathing. So let's give it a try, shall we? Here we go. So this is us talking about emotional intelligence and positive mental health. We're trying to keep our mental health positive, and we need to be able to deal with our negatives. It's a real thing. Mental health usually has to do with negatives, and our negative feelings, our negative situations. But if we can deal with those, then we can get more positive. So like positive psychology, emotional intelligence, and positive mental health are about being positive. It kind of tells what we do and how to do it in 3 quick words. It all starts with emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, you guys have probably heard of that now. We call it EQ for short. It should be EI, but it's EQ. It's the reason we call it EQ, the reason I call it EQ is because people have left brain and right brain. They have IQ, which people know about. People know about their IQ. They do not know about their EQ. And so we go, well, you've got thoughts going on in our head, our knowledge, our logical thinking, our cognitive side is all going on in our left brain, which is cool. But we're not too good on our right brain. We don't pay much attention to our right brain. And so IQ versus EQ, people kind of get it that there's 2 sides of the brain, and there's also 2 sides of our whole spirit, where we are cognitive and knowledgeable on one side, and then we are emotional, passionate, creative, our senses, all that stuff is on our right side. And so we got to put them together. We're looking for balance. We're trying to balance the 2. And so EQ is about how to deal with our emotions that we don't learn in schools, and we don't talk about them as kids, and we better not deal with them at work, right? And so we don't know much about our emotions, and that's why Ray and I are here jumping up and down about it, saying, hey, you guys, this is really important. It's really important to learn how to manage our inner world. So emotional intelligence has been around for a while now, since 90 in the 90s anyway. Daniel Goleman wrote a famous book called EQ, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. I think it matters the same as IQ. I don't think it matters more, but it does definitely matter. And we definitely don't know much about it. And so we're trying to learn about it. And we're trying to teach about it, what we do know. And that's why we're here. So emotional intelligence is the concepts and language and skills, how to deal with our emotions, or what's possible to deal with our emotions. And now we're developing positive mental health because it's doing the strategies, right? Emotional intelligence is like, okay, here are the choices. Positive mental health says, okay, here's the ones that you might want to give a try. Here's how to do it, when to do it, how hard to do it, how loud to do it, that kind of thing. So positive mental health is about strategies and putting it to use, putting our emotional intelligence to use in our lives. We've been doing this for a while, and so we've got some pretty good ideas how to do this, and we're sharing that with you. So, and peace is the goal. Peace is the goal of all of this, inside of us and between us as well. Someday we have a nonprofit called EQ4PEACE, and the objective is to teach people how to be peaceful inside, because we don't know how to do it, and how to create peace around us. And maybe when enough of us know how to be peaceful, maybe we can have big peace. Maybe we can have big peace for all of us. So we'll see. We can't prove it yet, but we'll see. It's worth a try, I guess. That's what I'm up to. So we have inner peace inside of us. We have interpersonal peace between two of us, right? Couples and having a communication and talking to each other, and we can get along. And then there's social peace, which is among us, with 3 or more people can get along. And these are all teachable skills. And like I said, someday maybe we can have big peace all the way around us. What we're finding, one of the basic concepts, is that no matter what is happening outside of us, we have the power to control what happens inside of us. This is emotional intelligence. This is positive mental health. This is about knowing that we are in charge of ourselves. We are in charge of ourselves. I call it emotional responsibility. Ray calls it internal locus of control. Basically, it just means that we're in charge of us, inside of us. Nobody makes us angry. Nobody hurts our feelings. We do that. And we do it with our thoughts, and we do it with stuff that's happened to us in the past, our history and that sort of thing. But the bottom line is we do it to ourselves, and that's good news. That's very, very, very good news. We can't control a lot of things that happen outside of us, but we can control what happens inside of us. So that's wonderful news. In my opinion, it was a life changer for me. That's one of the main reasons I'm here, is because of knowing that we are in charge of us. And kids don't know that. People don't know that. They think that, their parents did it to them, or the school did it to them, or government did it to them, or the economy's doing it to them, or whatever. Everybody's doing it to them. No, they're not. They're doing what they're doing. We get to decide what goes on inside of us. And Ray's going to go into much deeper talk about that when we in just a minute. So, but notice that's really good news. Sometimes this is a big leap for people, because people don't know this mostly, and a lot of people think that people make us feel what we feel, and they don't. They just do what they do. We make us feel what we feel and make us think what we think. So this is super good news, in my opinion. Positive mental health basically is about learning about our negatives, how to deal with our negatives, like I mentioned, especially like fear and anger, sadness, anxiety, stress, depression, all that stuff. Those are real. They're real things. We got to deal with them. And the good news is, if and when we do learn how to deal with them, we can have a lot more positives in our life. We can have joy and peace and love. We can have a lot of good stuff. You'll notice that this graph kind of is a smiley face, and we can smile a lot more if we can adjust our thoughts and feelings properly. So the way it works is that we have thoughts and feelings, and they're different. A lot of people just focus on their thoughts and ignore their feelings. That's not working very well. It doesn't go very well. So I want you to have awareness of your thoughts and your feelings. Know that they're different, and know that they have different strategies for how to handle them. but most people, or a lot of people, don't deal with their feelings at all. They don't want to talk about them. They don't want to think about them. They don't want to deal with them. They don't want to look at them. And but they're there 24/7, 365. They're there. They're happening. You can't not think, and you can't not feel. And so we probably gotta get good at both of those. Our thoughts create our feelings. Our feelings create, we make decisions based on our thoughts and our feelings, and then we take actions based on our decisions, right? But it's all based on our thoughts and feelings. So the three basic steps are awareness first. We got to be aware first, right? We can't do anything until we're aware of what's going on. We accept, that sounds like a minor thing, but it's not. It's huge, because a lot of people do not accept their feelings, especially even their thoughts sometimes. But it's also about, like I mentioned, it's about accepting emotional responsibility, meaning that you know that you created your own thoughts and you created your own feelings, and so you are going to do your own actions. You can think whatever you want, you can feel whatever you want, and you can act kind of whatever you want. There are going to be consequences possibly, but still they're up to you. So those are the basic thoughts and or basics of emotional intelligence and positive mental health. And this is a big important distinction. I thought it was especially important today, talking about elderly, because what do you do about this problem of getting old? What do you do about that? Well, there's some things we can do about it. We can't stop it. We can't stop it. Well, we can, but it's pretty ugly consequences, but we can't do anything about the problem. We can't do much about the problem. It's an action, right? Those are actions. What we do need to deal with is, what do we do with the problem? It's happening. We're getting older. We're getting, our bodies kind of breaking down and such. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with you aging? What are you going to do with your thoughts and feelings while your body is doing what it's doing? So notice that there's a difference between what are you going to do about a problem, which most of us are comfortable trying to fix things and make it better. Well, maybe we can, maybe we can't. But what do you do with it is a whole nother story, and that is up to you. Very basics of it: name it to tame it, which means being aware first, right? I remember I said awareness, acceptance, action. We got to be aware first. Spin it to win it means that once we're aware, we can change it. We can change our thoughts. If we don't like our thoughts, and we don't have bad thoughts, we can have better thoughts on purpose. Consciously make better thoughts. Just replace them with the new thoughts. It's very simple. It ain't always easy. It's simple, but it ain't easy. A lot of this stuff. And feel it to heal it is one of my things about how most people, or a lot of people, avoid their feelings and such. And they try to think of all different ways. A lot of therapy and stuff is about going around them and avoiding them and making sure they don't happen. But sometimes they are happening anyway. And sometimes the best way to go over the problem is to go through it, right? To go through it, and you actually let yourself feel what you feel, and your body will thank you for it, because it wants to feel what it feels. So, all right, I'm going to switch over to Ray and stop sharing, listening, and see what you can take from this. And good luck with your old age, because we're all getting it. We're all in it together. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, please unmute. Ray, unmute. Please unmute.
Unmute.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes,
as
yes.
Matt said, can you hear me now? You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
so
we
it's
can see your
applying the
screen.
principles and practices of what Matt calls positive mental health to the mental and emotional challenges of being elderly. That's very close to home for me. I'm 72, going on 73. And unfortunately, as I told Matt earlier, I have a brother-in-law who's only 58. He's may very well take his last breath today because of cancer. So this is very close to home. Some of the challenges I made a list of some of the challenges: loss of strength and stamina, which is something I deal with every day when I try to do my workouts; increasing disability and immobility for a lot of people. But there's an old saying, it's better to wear out than rust out. So you got to keep moving. loss of independence and freedom, loss of loved ones and friends, chronic or terminal illness, impending mortality. You know, the closer you get, I'm 72. I'd like to live to be 120. That's always been my goal. But one way or another, it's getting closer every day. So, all right, emotional issues, you get depression, loneliness, grief, anxiety, despair, hopelessness, bitterness sometimes, and many times a lot of regret. Now, some of the problem behaviors, alcohol abuse in elderly people. I see people at the grocery store buying large quantities of alcohol. They must consume a lot of it. Smoking for a lot of older people. Inactivity becomes a problem, which can hasten any kind of downward spiral in your health. Unhealthy eating, non-compliance with medicine and other things, and avoiding doctors' checkups and testing that might be necessary. And sometimes in elderly people, suicide tends to spike a little bit. Now, I like to take, for those of you who've seen me talk before, heard me talk before, I like to take a tool approach. Because regardless of whatever you're trying to fix or build, there's a limited number of tools that can be brought to bear. And the trick is knowing what tool is called for and getting good at using them. Now, one of those tools is a formula that's based on Dr. Albert Ellis's ABC theory of emotion. This is kind of a variation of it. I use event plus thoughts equals feelings and then behavior. Now, and to put it into words, events can be real, they can be remembered, they can be imagined, they can be external or internal. But your thoughts cause feelings, not events. Okay, or Dr. Ellis would say your beliefs about yourself, others, and life. A person's behavior will tend to follow his feelings or emotions toward his life events, and attitude is always to follow the behavior. Now, so if you plug all those things I listed earlier into this formula, this is what it would look like. Okay. Now, but the key point about this is that you have all these what I call cognitive choices at the thought point in this formula. Okay. Now, those choices include how you choose to look at things or yourself, what meaning you attach to what does happen. People are always attaching meaning to what happens. That's what the brain does, trying to make sense out of things. What you focus on, what you compare your things or yourself or your life to, what you remember about the past at any given moment, what you imagine will happen in the future, what you expect of yourself, others, in life, how much importance you attach to what does happen, and what you spend your time thinking about. Now, we make these cognitive choices all the time, usually without being aware of them. You're making them right now, listening to me. We typically make these privately rather than publicly, so others don't get to challenge the way we make them. We often practice and rehearse making them in the same ways. And we develop what I like to call ruts in our brain for the way we do. And those ruts are easy to slip into, hard to stay out of, and sometimes hard to get out of once you slip into them. They make such choices automatic. And because they become so automatic, what Dr. Ellis used to call automatic irrational beliefs, Dr. David Amen calls automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs, we lose sight of the fact that there can be other ways to make these choices. Now, so I think it's very important I even urge people to make a little card to constantly remind themselves, carry a little card. We used to call it a coping card. How I look at things. It's my choice how I look at things. It's my choice what meaning I attach. It's my choice what I focus on, and so forth. And you might even make a little poster for your office or your workspace. Now, the most powerful tool of all is the freedom to choose. And nowhere is that more important than in the later years of a person's life or when they face a chronic or serious illness. Now, as far as how you look at things, I'm going to go through each one of these choices. There's always more than one way to look at anything, regardless of how serious or tragic it might be. Some ways will make you feel better. Other ways will make you feel worse. Some will make it easier to deal with your adversity. Others will make it harder. But there's always more than one way to look at anything, regardless of what it is. And, talk about pessimism versus optimism. And it's easy to slide one way or the other, and people will do that. Some people tend to lean one way or the other, but people will tend to go back and forth. Now, one point I always try to make is what Dr. Ellis used to call unconditional self-acceptance. Whatever way you choose to look at things will be part of being human and understandable given what circumstances you find yourself in and what you have to deal with, like getting old or having a terminal illness. It just may not be helpful or healthy. And there always will be another way to choose, you could choose to look at things. Now, what meaning you attach. The human mind is always trying to make sense out of what happens, mainly looking for threats. It will attach meaning to what does happen. For example, I could think I'm getting old, okay, because something hurts, or I can't do what I used to be. It's important to be aware that your brain does this all the time, always attaching meaning, because there's always more than one meaning you could attach to anything that happens. Some meanings you might attach will make you feel worse, some will cause you to lose hope, and others will make you feel better and give you some hope. Okay. Now, what you focus on, there's always more than one thing you could focus on. I could focus on what little hair I have or what hair I have left, you know, the fact that it's gray or that I still have some black hair in there. So you can focus on what's going right. You can focus on what's going wrong. You can focus on what you have or what you don't have. You can focus on what you've lost or what you still have. You can focus on what you no longer can do or what you still can do. I can't lift like I used to, or exercise, lift as much weight as I used to, but I can still lift. It's just not, and the only thing that makes me feel good is I look at old guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not lifting as much as he used to either. Okay, it's part of aging. Now, if you focus on things that make you feel worse, again, that's part of being human and understandable. That's what human beings tend to do. Because what you've lost can be indicative of future losses and therefore threats. So your brain tends to go toward the negative. It just may not be helpful to do that, and there's always something else you could focus on. Now, another choice, what you compare things to. There's always more than one thing you can compare things to. There's always more than one person you could compare yourself to, or one person's life that you can compare your life to. Some of the things and people and lives you choose for comparison will make you feel better. Others will make you feel worse. You know, if I go to the gym, I don't go to the gym anymore. I work out in my garage right behind me here because I go to the gym. There's all these young guys that are probably using steroids and their biggest houses and they're lifting tons of weight. It's depressing. So I don't go there. I stay home, do my workout, and I feel like I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though I know I'm not. Now, one of the things I used to do, with my brother-in-law's situation, him dying of cancer, I reminded me of, you know, I taught 14-year-olds, and 14-year-olds tend to be big awfulizers. Everything's awful in their life. So one of the ways I used to challenge them is say, look, right now there's kids your age, couple in every school in the country who are dying of cancer, maybe about to take their last breath. Would you trade places with them? Well, of course not. Would they gladly trade places with you? Of course. Well, then why is what's happening to you so awful? And of course, the answer I'm trying to get them to realize is it's not. It's just unpleasant, inconvenient, or maybe uncomfortable, but it's not awful. It could be a lot worse. Now, if you compare yourself with things in your life or your own life to others and others' lives that make you feel worse, that's part of being human. It's just not helpful. And there are other things, people, and lives you could compare yourself to, use for comparison. Now, what you remember? You can remember things that make you feel good and bring a smile to your face. You can remember things that make you feel bad and bring tears to your eyes. We all have that. Okay, you can remember things that cause you to have regrets or that bring you satisfaction about your life. Most people will have both kinds of memories. Now, it's part of being human to remember bad things that happen. It's a way the brain tries to prevent recurrences. However, remembering bad things won't change what's already happened. The only thing that worse than living through it once is to relive it many times in your own mind. Okay. Now, and there's a poster I used to have that I always think of. It said, keep your face to the sunshine and you won't have to see the shadows. Okay. Now, people can make all these cognitive choices any way they want to. If they make them in ways that make them feel worse and their lives worse, that's part of being human. Human beings do that. But there will be predictable emotional and behavioral consequences for the way they do make these choices. Now, Another choice is what you spend your time thinking about. The question, Dr. Ellis used to have what he called functional disputes. Does thinking about what you make or thinking about what you do make you, thinking about what you are make you feel better or worse? To think about things that make you feel bad is part of being human again. But most people spend time thinking about won't change what's happened and often just causes needless emotion. We all have a limited amount of time on this planet, some of us less than others at this point. Does it make sense to spend time thinking about things that make us feel worse and that cause us needless emotion? So how's it working for you to think about the things you do and spend your time thinking about what you do? Does it change anything? Does it make your life better or worse? Now, why going public can be helpful. Every thought you have is your personal theory or hypothesis about the way life is or should be, or about what will happen. Now, some of your personal theories or hypotheses can make you feel worse than you need to, or that is helpful. It's important to always question and challenge these theories and hypotheses and look for evidence that either supports or refutes them. And I always remember you have old video clips of Dr. Ellis saying, "Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence that life has to treat you better?" You know, and so forth. Now, so it can help to share your theories and hypotheses out loud with others because it gives them a chance to question and challenge those. And it can lead to more helpful theories and hypotheses. Now, Dr. Ellis used to say, shame blocks change. Shame comes from believing you're not living up to expectations. People often imagine that others would think less of them if others discovered how they think and feel and what they might be struggling with. This can cause people to keep what they think and feel and struggle with a secret. And that can spiral in a very negative way, downhill. It can cause them to be less likely to seek out help of others and less likely to accept any help that is offered. Now, this causes people to miss opportunities to see new ways of making these cognitive choices. And it's why Dr. Ellis used to say shame blocks change. Now, so he used to try to teach and encourage people to have what we call unconditional self-acceptance. And in this case, it would mean any accepting or choosing to believe or choosing to see anything you think or feel or struggle with as part of being human and understandable given what you have to deal with, which is perhaps old age, increasing age, and possibly some kind of chronic or even terminal illness. Now, why we say it's part of being human is because you'll never be the first human being to think, remember, imagine, feel, or struggle with what you do. You'll never be the last. You're always going to have a lot of company at any given point in time. Why it's understandable? Because if you put others through the same situation, they'd probably think and feel or struggle with much the same things. Some might fare better, others worse, but most would probably think and feel much the same as you are and probably struggle with many of the same things. Now, on illness, death, and dying, concern is understandable and can be very helpful. It can motivate you to take action to protect your health and extend your life. I'm concerned about dying sooner than I'd like to, so I work out every day, I eat healthy, I do everything that I can to make my life as long as possible and as good as possible. Exercise, eating healthy, maintaining ideal body weight, regular checkups, tests. I get my PSA every year just to make sure I don't have prostate cancer. You stop smoking and so forth. Now, if you have too little emotion, you may not do things you could and should to make your life better, your health better and longer. Anxiety can also cause you to freeze, to avoid things like needed doctor's visits and tests. My brother-in-law, for example, was sick for a long time and didn't do anything to seek help and find out why, which may have cost him his life, which is common for people to do. So I like to use what I call a think, feel, do thermostat. So if you're calm, you may not have enough energy to move to motivate you to do anything. So you may not do many. A lot of people live their life like they're going to live forever, and then all of a sudden they end up with something that takes their life. Now, on the other hand, if you have anxiety, it can cause you to react and plug into flight or freeze. And then you might avoid doctors, refuse to get tests, and deny or ignore symptoms, which I think may have been what my brother-in-law might have done. I don't know, but it sounds like he might have. On the other hand, if you find the middle ground there, concern, you have some energy to move to motivate you to take some action, but you're still free to respond in the best possible way and perhaps exercise, lose some weight, see a doctor on a regular basis. Now, most medical health problems are easier to treat and have better outcomes if detected early, especially cancer. Whether you get tested or not doesn't change what's going on inside you. I mean, sometimes I find myself being reluctant to go and get a test too. But my coping statement is whatever it is, it is. It's not going to stop or go away just because you choose not to acknowledge it. Okay. Now, anxiety, we call anxiety a figment of imagination because it's about things that could happen but haven't happened yet. Now, so talk about the choice of what you imagine. Imagining things going badly is also part of being human and understandable, especially when you're elderly, because illness and death are things that could happen. Others' illnesses and deaths, like my brother-in-law, for example, right now, many people in the family are probably being reminded of their own immortality, or not immortality, mortality, I should be. Imagined events can have the same emotional impact as real ones. If you think you're dying of cancer, you could be just as upset as if you really were, even though you may not be. And death, unfortunately, is inevitable, but imagining ahead of time will only make you feel bad in the meantime. Now, so there's a technique called staying in the now, which helps with this kind of anxiety, where you tell yourself that might happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And if it does, I'll deal with it, just like others have, just like I have other things in the past. Anxiety about death and dying. I mentioned, I don't know how many of you heard this, but I was talking earlier. I actually got to work with Dr. Ellis about my anxiety about death and dying. I had 5 near-death experiences by the time I was 30. And then I was a paramedic working with people who were dying on a regular basis. So I start to have a lot of anxiety. And it comes from making demands of life. And basically, the demand he taught me to see, helped me see, was I was making is that I can't die. You know, instead of just, I wish I didn't have to die. Or I should be able to live forever instead of I just would like to live forever or want to live forever. And the reason that's important is because the greater the difference you create between your expectations and reality, the greater the perceived threat will be, and the more emotion you'll generate, more energy to move you'll generate. In this case, in the form of anxiety, or sometimes people get angry about their mortality and illness too. So the idea with your think thermostat is to try to turn it down from making that demand of life to just simply wishing you didn't have to die and wishing that you can live forever. And the way Ellis, I always remember him saying to me, looked at me and he kind of, I think he had a pipe in his hand. He said, why should life treat you any better than it does the rest of us? And why should you get to live forever when no one else does? And of course, I sat there dumbfounded. And I said, well, there is no reason. And it kind of snapped me out of it. It was quite amazing, actually. Now, depression also comes from making demands of life. Now, I was told that Dr. Ellis said depression is a quiet temper tantrum. Now, his long life companion, I can't remember her name right now, but she told me, no, he never said that. But so I don't know if that's true or not. But the bottom line is you make demands of life like this. This shouldn't be happening to me, instead of, I wish this wasn't happening to me. Or I shouldn't have to deal with this, instead of, I wish I didn't have to deal with this. Or it's not fair. And the demand is, the implied demand is, life should be fair and treat me fairly, instead of, I wish life treated me better. So the goal then is to try to get someone to turn their think thermostat just down a notch. Instead of demanding that life, what's happening shouldn't be happening, or that you shouldn't have to deal with it. I wish this wasn't happening to me, and I wish I didn't have to deal with this. So you end up with some sadness, but not depression. And if you can get to the point where you say, hey, whatever happens, happens, you'd be calm and indifferent. Okay. Now, there's another thing Dr. Ellis talked about called low frustration tolerance, or LFT. And I think that's important to talk about, because there's a lot of things people could do to make their life better, their health better, increase their longevity. Exercise, for example, is very important. There's more and more research comes out all the time. Keep moving. That's what they keep telling everybody to do. But then you have people who don't do it because they have what we call low frustration tolerance. They tell themselves, I can't stand doing that. I shouldn't have to do that. It shouldn't be so hard. It should be easier than this. And modern life, with modern life being so convenient and comfortable the way it is and so pleasant for most people, it ends up creating an intolerance for discomfort or inconvenience. And people are more likely to do what Dr. Ellis used to call whine. Actually, he used to add another word in front of that I won't repeat here. So one of my coping statements has always been, that's why they call it a workout. They don't call it a play out. You know, they call it a workout for a reason. It's hard work. Okay. Now, let's talk a second for why people keep doing unhealthy things. Well, you go back to a simple psychological principle. Behavior starts and continues because it serves a purpose. And what I found as a health education teacher is the real underlying problem for many of my students was that they had way too much emotion about their past life or current life events, and sometimes their imagined life events. And too much emotion can give purpose to unhealthy behaviors. If you have too much anxiety, you might drink or use drugs and so forth, or people get stressed out and they end up smoking more. As long as people generate too much emotion, the behavior will continue to serve a purpose and be hard to stop doing. Okay, illness, disability, and pending death can be activating events for even more emotion, because now you got more things to be upset about. So if you eliminate behavior, the problem is you're still left with the emotion. Now, the other reason people continue to do things that are unhealthy, it has to do with what I call ruts. When you practice a behavior or a thought or feeling, you create a rut in your brain. The ruts are easy to slip into, hard to stay out of or get out of once you plug into them. And once people create ruts, you never get rid of them. They're there forever. You're stuck with them. You can only make new ones and hope that they compete for use with the old ones. And you do that by practicing new ways of behaving. But you can always slip back into old ruts at any time, and you probably will. Slipping into old ruts is part of being human because you're dealing with brain physiology and chemistry. Now, Dr. Ellis had one of his irrational thinkings was called awfulizing. There are a lot of things in life are unpleasant, inconvenient, and uncomfortable. Oh, God, there's a typo right there. Anyways, what people do, the mistake they make is they tell themselves it's awful, like the worst possible thing that could happen. And that could precipitate anxiety or depression instead of concern or sadness. Now, there's a formula for anxiety. It's catastrophize. First, you imagine something bad happening, and then you tell us if that happens, that'll be awful. If you said, so what, it's no big deal, it's not the end of the world, you wouldn't have anxiety, maybe some concern, or maybe indifference. Now, so one of the simple questions you can pose is, would it be awful or just unpleasant or uncomfortable or inconvenient? So is it awful or is it just unpleasant? Okay. Now, people can set their think thermostats wherever they want to. It's their decision alone. I'm not about to go tell my in-laws right now whether losing their brother is awful or not. That's for them to decide. The only thing I can tell you, there will be predictable emotional, even behavioral consequences for where people do set their think thermostats. If they want to set it awful, that's their choice. There'll be predictable emotional, behavioral consequences for doing that. Now, one of my coping statements I got from my grandparents who went through the Great Depression, World War II, Korean War, about the time I came along in 1950. So whenever I would start to awfulize, they would always say, hey, it could be a lot worse. And, I think about that. Right now, I've got some aches and pains, and, I'm not as healthy as I used to be when I was 35 years old, but I could be my brother-in-law right now. Could be a lot worse. I could be laying in that bed instead of him. Could always be a lot worse. Okay, my wife sometimes complains about what the grandkids do. I say, hey, your brother's laying in bed right now. It could be a lot worse, okay? Now, there's an old saying, the will to win is more important than the skill to win. Well, I think the same is true for the will to live, okay? Now, but here's the important point. Will to live, I would place under feelings in that formula, which means that whether you have the will to live tonight or give up is determined by how you make those cognitive choices. That's your power. That's your tool to control whether you continue to have the will to live or not. Now, and the will to live can be helped by a purpose-driven life. I'm sure people have heard about a purpose-driven life. And I think Matt has a purpose-driven life, right, Matt? And that's keep it. don't ever give up on that because it'll help. Okay. Now, the ultimate choice, so to finish up what I'm saying here, the ultimate choice is to give up or keep going. Okay. Now, that's true at any age. There are kids who give up at 14 and 15 and take their own lives. The ultimate choice is to give up or keep going. It's even more important as we enter the later stages of life or become serious ill. Each person's got to make that choice. Loved ones often get troubled when someone they care about who's ill or old chooses to give up. But it's a choice each person alone has to make. And it's a choice they should be allowed to make. Now, just to kind of finish this off with this, what's happening with my brother-in-law is reminding me of a song by Neil Diamond. I don't know if any of you have ever heard this or remember it. He rattles off this big, long, and I'd urge you to look it up if you haven't, find a YouTube video of it. He rattles off this whole list of famous names, starting with Jesus Christ, Fanny Bryce, and he just goes through this big whole list of names. And then he does that at a real fast pace. And at the very end, he slows the tempo down very dramatically. And then he very quietly sings. And each one there has one thing they share. They have sweated beneath the same sun, looked up at wonder at the same moon, and wept when it was all done for being done too soon, for being done too soon. Because in the end, that's all anybody can do. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is one of my favorite sayings of all time here that I've had all my life. Time and life are our only real possessions. A lot of people nowadays are very materialistic. Well, everything you own owns you. And what really is important is time and life are our only real possessions. You don't want to run out of time before you realize that. Okay. I'm done. I'll stop sharing here. Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ray. That's great. Great stuff.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's up to us what we think and feel, and being able to adjust our thoughts and feelings. You got really cool way of putting stuff so that so that you can adjust and spin it to win it, like I call it. I very much definitely have a purpose-driven life. I wish that for everyone. I do. I wish that for everyone, that they could feel as strongly about their purpose and their destiny, whatever, if you like to call it, as I do. I'm not anybody special. I just found that I've got some information now. You also have some information about thoughts and feelings, and I choose to share it, just like you, Ray. I choose to share it, and Dr. S doing all these Wings of Life things are fantastic. He's choosing to make a difference and choosing to feel some purpose in his life, to help people, and it feels great, huh, Dr. S? It feels very, very cool. So I wish that for everybody. Thank you, Ray. Great stuff.
Okay, thank you very much. Today we have a very good class. And first, Mr. Matt by EQ and PMH has a new definition, new explanation, very nicely explained. And regarding Ray, so many things, particularly based on elderly people, their problems or their situations they are facing, basically in depression, sadness, CAM difference, illness, disability, and mortality fear. And very important thing, that is low frustration tolerance. Generally, these people are affected by this. And there is a chance of workout that also explained well. And why people doing unhappy, unhealthy things also, that's also explained. And there is anxiety. There is a new definition for that. Catastrophize plus awfulness is equal to anxiety. And it's explained about think thermostat and will to live, and time and life. These are all very important points regarding elderly people. And thank you, dear Mr. Ray and Mr. Matt, for explaining all this. Anybody want to explain, want to say something about this, or any doubts you can have? Jiraman sir, can you?
It was a very, very useful class. You brought us to a different world, I said. So, how you have framed the things? It's elderly time. It is a very typical time. So, you selected all the aspects of it. and you connected with positive mental health. So I was enjoying both the classes, both of you. And it is beneficial. Regarding your classes, what I have to tell is, whatever you say is going to our mind. Then we have to, what do you call, work upon it. This is the thing I got from you. But you repeat, your repeated classes make us the things easier. Almost the same subject you take, but in different. So your classes are very, very useful, and so we will. I will follow it. I will follow you. That is what my decision. Very correct approach. This is what I found out. Yeah.
Nice.
Let us hope
Thanks.
achieve positive mental health.
Definitely, what are the positive things that elderly people can do on this particular situation? That also you can explain. Positive things, how they became more easy, more positively, life is moving like.
Positive things in the sense this positive mental health side. I cannot say because I am not telling that much.
No, I am talking to Ray.
About elderly people, the two mantras have to be always remembered. One is share the responsibility. And that is the first mantra. And second mantra is flexibility. Never be stubborn. Always be flexible in everything. These two mantras, if they follow, their life will be beautiful. That is what I have studied. My university also taught me.
Yes, share and flexible. Share and
flexible. Share the responsibilities.
Share responsibility.
Don't see, you have come, your life stages are there. And elders, after 60 years, elderly life retirement stage starts. This retirement stage, up to death it goes. So
keeping away from responsibilities. Keeping away from responsibilities.
I didn't say that, sir. Up till death, you have to do something, and you will be responsible. At least for your breath, you are responsible. At least for your heart beatings, you are responsible. I didn't say not to be responsible, but share that the maximum. This is what it is taught. Share that. Mentality of sharing. It should be developed.
Okay.
Another biggest thing is flexibility. Flexibility. This one.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your class.
Welcome.
Okay. Anybody is there? Shaji sir is there? Shaji sir, get on.
Okay. Anyway, so many problems are there now in our society. Many of the problems arise because of the generation gap. Youngsters are not ready to recognize and accept and value elders in a way. Even in one generation, father and son, I feel great difference in understanding things. So naturally, elders may not be happy at all times because of these conditions and situations, but they can find happiness in their own ways by adopting so many techniques that have been discussed through this group. So many variety of ways are there whereby we can achieve some sort of satisfaction and consolation. Anyway, both sirs, Matt, and both sirs' presentations are in a way very thought-provoking. They present so many ideas, and only that we have to digest it, taking time, follow it, practice it, in our daily lives. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sabu sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I think we can introduce some new topic about these elderly people regarding how they became more happy and more safe from this, just like what is happening in Okinawa in Japan. Their elders are very happy and peaceful, and their life expectancy is also much more, keeping them more positive in that. So that aspect also we can have one session for this elderly people, not only for elderly people, other people are there, they are always engaged, in fact. That also we can do it after completing the session. Can you give some suggestions, Mr. Ray?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you have some suggestions on how people are more happy in elderly time?
Well, it's just, it comes down to how you choose to look at things, and how you make all those choices. That's why I think it's so important to keep those choices in sight, because most people their thoughts tend to become so automatic and sometimes irrational, and they don't realize that there's any other way to look at things. And so I think it's very important to always constantly remember there's more than one way to look at things. There's more than one way to focus, thing you could focus on, to compare things to. And the more choice is power. I mean, there's some things there's just no good way to look at things. I mean, there's no good way to look at what's happening to my brother-in-law right now. But, if people are going to get past this event, and I'm hoping his two daughters, one who's a doctor, another one's into medical field. I think she's a radiologist, that they're going to struggle with this just because, with what they know and what they can do, they're not able to save their own father. I'm sure they're going to struggle with that. But, hopefully everyone will find a way to choose to look at things and, choose what they remember, selectively remember some good things about what happened in their life instead of any bad things. And, it's everybody's got to make those choices. And there's, you can try to help people and give them some idea of other ways to make those choices. But in the end, everybody's on their own. Everybody's got their own, have to make those choices. It's something that happens very personal inside your own head. Nobody can do it for you. They can try to influence what you think and what you choose how you choose to look at things or make those choices. But in the end, everybody's got to make that choice for themselves. So.
Okay, thank you.
That's very nice, sir. May I speak something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, both of them done a very good job. Fraser told that choice is our power. That's really great. We have the choice. Whatever we have to think, right? So the power is there. Yesterday also we talked about the same thing, REBT. We have, while disputing, we are doing the same thing, right? So all these things are really connected. And in emotional intelligence also, Maths are told we have control only inside, not the outside world. Whether it is in our family or outside world, wherever it is, we have the control only inside. So that's really great. So we are talking about our thoughts only. That is the basic things of everything. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yep. Excuse me, but Raji, I didn't say we have only control over what happens inside of us. Mostly we have total control of what happens inside of us. We have some control, maybe of what happens outside. There's some things we can do. I hate to say that there's nothing we can do. There's some things we can do, but your point is well taken, that it's we have a lot of control, way more control than we imagine about what's going on inside of us. And most people, I don't think, know that. So like Ray said, there's always more than one way to look at things. Choose wisely. Right?
Yeah, it's like that Indiana Jones movie where the ancient knight says you must choose, but choose wisely, because as the cup of, what is that? The Holy Grail will lead to immortality. The wrong cup will lead to death. So I should have put that
Choose
in.
wisely.
That'd be a nice clip.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much once again. The next
Actually-
week also yes.
Actually, our choice determines our condition in a way. Now, it is said that destiny is not a matter of chance. It's a matter of choice. It's not something to be waited for. It is something to be achieved. So in a way, so many things, adverse things may happen, but how we react to it. So in a way, it is said that attitude is the greatest word, meaningful word in English language. So how we approach things, how we respond determines our attitude in a way. Thank you, sir, once again. Thank you, Sabu sir.
That is what we call as
The way-
BC. B is the birth and D is the death. And in between, there is a choice. B, C, D, like.
Right. The dash, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, thank you once again. So next week also we have some the same topic with some other fashion. And thank you, Mr. Matt and Mr. Ray, for a wonderful talk on elderly people. And definitely, it's a very important topic because elderly people are a little bit affected some way or other way. They are not finding their own positiveness in their life. Anyway, for the time being, there are so many opportunities for making their life more positive. Anyway, once again, thank you all. Tomorrow we have a session on triangulation by Vijayaraman sir. Vijayaraman sir, can you say something?
This was an interesting
I wanted to-
topic. Yeah, you please, sir. Please go on. Please go on, sir.
I just wanted to say that next week, we are pretty much done with this topic on positive mental health for the different age groups. What we're going to do next Saturday is anger management versus anger prevention. Those are different, right? Anger management versus anger prevention. Those are very, very different. So we're going to go dig into anger. Anger is a big deal for people. They don't understand it. They don't know where it comes from. They don't know how to deal with it. They deny it big time. And it messes with you. So we're going to talk about that. So next Saturday, we'll see you then.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we will wait for that.
Vijayaraman sir.
Yeah, I'll talk
Okay.
about triangulation, my topic tomorrow. This is a very what you call attractive subject for me when I studied my family therapy. So triangulation happens in everybody's life. But are we bothered about that? This is the question. If we understand this topic, our life will be better. And this is a very, very interesting topic. The various aspects of this triangulation, this phenomena is what is that? We will be astonished. Is such a thing is there or not? And whatever our life happened was because of this. And we can avoid that. And we can make our family life healthier if you know this and if you know how to deal with this. Okay, let us wait.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, thank you once again, Mr. Matt and Mr. Ray. We'll see you in the next time with the anger prevention and management. Thank you once again, and have a very good day. Thank you. Bye. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.